Hi there, I thought I'd just take you through the CRM, specifically Bitrix24 setup costs. I liken the setup of a CRM to getting Microsoft Office for the first time. Microsoft Office comes with a lot of functionality and a lot of apps within apps, if that makes sense. At some stage you would go, I need to use Word to do my letters, and I need to have my letterhead in my letters. I need to have my letterhead in my Microsoft Word. I need to have my email signature inside my Microsoft Outlook or Microsoft Mail. I want to have a PowerPoint template so I can do presentations. I need Excel spreadsheets set up so that I can handle reporting. So although Microsoft Office is a platform to handle a whole lot of business processes, there's a lot of setup to be done in order for it to actually function so that it adds value to the business. So I liken it very similarly to the way that I set up the CRM, knowing that the CRM will do a whole lot of things, but what are the ones that we need to start with and ideally have within a 3-month plan that it's up and running and it starts basically adding value to digital marketing. All right, so I'm going to start with the top section in this window over here. So it's the Level 1 Help Center Setup software. I call everything that's Level 1 a setup and Level 2 an added service. So all the Level 1s here are all to actually just set up are all part of the setup of the software. And the Level 2 is actually an outsourced service that we offer. Some people have asked that we'd maintain the CRM and build on the leads and pass on leads, as opposed to clients handling the leads on their own. Right, for the initial setup, basically is setting up the company, the initial user and the levels, the leads and sales funnel, and the reporting. Obviously not having sight of everything that the CRM can do and the extendability of the CRM, we base this on having set it up quite a few times, and we know that this basic stuff needs to be done in order for leads to come in, leads to go through a funnel, and people to have access to those leads and who's going to do what. So if I just give you an overview of what they are, company structure, departments, and users. I'll show you a little case study of those now. The CRM setup, which is specifically the leads and the sales. The CRM setup, the master email account for leads. The CRM setup, lead queuing and routing. Then the setup of client cards, the outbound email configuration, and the setup of the inbound interaction sources. So just to give you an example of how these work, if I flip over to one of the ones we're busy working on at the moment, this is an overview of the CRM dashboard that we're in, but right now I'm going to go to this area over here called Employees, where we set up the company. Now this can be configured to however it needs to be, but you can see in this case we've got what is management at the top. We've got accounts department, office sales department, marketing department, sales support, and chatbots. Chatbots are actually serviced by Bitrix24 themselves. In this case, we've put most of the people who are working on it at an admin level, so that they can see all the leads coming in, rather than when leads get distributed amongst different departments, only the people within the departments would see those leads. That's the company structure, and then you've got the employees who then go into that company structure. So within this you would have different levels, who the administrator is, who the supervisors of different channels are, and the different users that are going to use the system. Each user gets a profile. So within the profile, so I'll just show you mine. So if I go to Ulrich, you'll see I get a profile. And then within there, I've got a whole lot of tasks that I have to perform, my calendar, any conversations that I've had with any of the team. I have a drive, which is similar to a Dropbox. Right, so that's the overview of the company setup. The next is, let's pop back to here. So that's the company, the departments. Now we talk about the leads and the sales funnels. Fundamentally, this is the most important part of the system. We go to CRM. You'll notice we've got leads and deals set up at the top. Basically, anything that comes in that we've set to be a lead will come into a lead area. We can view it in different ways, from Kanban to a list, to a calendar, or even on the reports. So basically, what happens is the lead comes in, and we set up in the lead funnel and then the deal funnel. At what stage they are. So for instance, this at the moment would come in, let's say that one over there, Pocket Deal online form. So that's a message to come through the online form. It comes into, and it's unassigned. The next thing that needs to be assigned, so we would then go into that specific lead. We'd check who it's from. So this is an inbound mail. It's come from the form. It says, please contact me. So the next thing to do with that is to say, I need to assign it. So I'm going to assign it, and it moves off Kelly, who's our online person only, to handle online chat. I'm going to change that. I'm going to, oops, wrong person. Let's go to JP, and JP will handle a query. And I'll close it up. So that would move across the line now in the status. So leads at the moment, these are the leads funnel. So at the moment we go from unassigned to assigned to contact made to processed, and then the lead is either completed or not. A completed lead can be a junk. So if I click on this one here, it can either be a junk lead or a generated deal. Then the deals work very similar, in a very similar way to the leads. They move across the timeline. And depending on what business process is needed in order to be able to define a lead and say whether the deal is closed, you would have things like prepare paperwork, whether they have paid or whether it's the order has been sent, the payment's been made or the car's been delivered, and at some stage you close the deal and the deal moves off the deal timeline. So invariably this would be at the end of a process, and it might be that you might have the end of the process being when the car is delivered, or when when the invoice is paid, whatever you'd need to handle the deal, whether you think the deal's by the time the car gets delivered or when the person closes the deal and paperwork signed, or however it might be. That we work with you to work out the best way of putting the deals through the timeline. Right, so then the next one is the next one is the master email and leads. So in this one over here, we go to webmail. Now each person gets a box, and when I say each person gets a box, so there's individual webmails and there's the master webmail. In this case, what we do is concentrate on the master one that most people will have sight of. So in the case that somebody completes something in the mail, we've set it, these automatically go into a lead, so that we don't have to manually process them. But if a lot of mail comes to that box and you want to filter it out, so for instance, here's an Instagram mail, and let's say you didn't want those mails to go through into leads, you could actually delete them from the inbox rather than actually having to process them. We also have to set up the outgoing mail, so you can, from the CRM, you can actually send outgoing mail as well. So I'll just take you back to the CRM. Oh, why is it going slow on me? It's thinking very hard. There we go. So from a system, from a lead or a deal, you can do a number of different ways of communicating. You can SMS them or email them. You can write a comment that'll just stay within here. You can actually comment somebody else. So at this stage, I could comment to JP and say to him, please follow up. That would go to JP. I could email the client straight from here, as long as the client has an email address. You can actually SMS as well. We haven't set up SMS. We haven't quoted to set up SMS in this case, because most of the communication will probably happen over email. But it's a fairly easy process to set up. You just need a sign up for an SMS server, and then it could send out SMSs as well. Right. I'm just going to close that one. Go back to our setup process. So lead queuing and routing. The lead queuing and routing, and the set up the inbound interaction sources. So this basically is setting up who would have to deal with a certain lead or deal that comes through. In this case, you'll have noticed that when I assigned a certain contact that came in, I sent it on to JP. So this would be where you'd set up who would be the responsible parties when a deal comes in, and who gets associated with what. And that just needs to be defined so that whoever's managing the leads coming in, that they know who to define it to. The next is who has to follow up and when. So within the system, you'll notice that there's certain plans that come through. So, for instance, in this case, if a person's status gets assigned, it automatically creates that there's a chat in the system, and that it's an active chat, and that something actually is planned and needs to action. So, talking specifically about actions, what you can do is you can have it set to say, all right, so if a chat comes in, it has to flag somebody that they need to go and do something. So each of the leads or the deals will have an activity, and the activity means that in this case it's coming up, and or is it? No, that was, yes, it is. It's coming up, so it gets flagged that has to be dealt with. And you'll notice that on this one here, there's no activity, so you can actually add an activity. So what would it be? I need to send an email, or I need to set up a new task, or set up a new meeting. And these can be customized to however you need them to be, in order for you to know that there is an activity around a certain timeline, so that you'd move it along the timeline, but also who needs that activity. Then when you go down to the activity stream, you would see a list of all the different activities that are assigned to you or that you've been involved with. So you get a better understanding of what I need to do next. It also helps to see if we've got a whole lot of backlog of activities that haven't been completed yet. Right, let's flip back to the setup process. Set up a client card. So this is more than anything to set up the master card. So in the case of, you'll notice after leads and deals, we've got contacts and companies. The system can basically handle a company with multiple contacts. So in the case of a contact comes through and you have multiple people that work at a company, you can set multiple contacts at a company. You can set the system to create contacts automatically from a deal or from a lead, depending on how you like to communicate with them and how you like to store their data. So this is where all the contacts would go in, and the idea behind it is that on the cards themselves, you would decide what type of information is needed for for what I call a client card. In other words, what type of fields would you need in the client card, so that you would have everything you might need in the future. You'll notice that associated with each card is actually the deals and the quotes, the invoices and orders and dependencies, any sort of history in the profile and the applications associated with them. Right, and that's the contacts and companies. So we'd set the fields up that they are right for managing them going forward. And I've addressed the inbound interaction sources. So basically, when I talk about the inbound interaction sources, you'll notice that on a lead, where they come from is often the part that you want to know. So you'll notice over here it's come from a live chat. This one's come from mail. Some of them will be from an online form. So we'd set them up so that they would have the correct where the leads came from, for us to monitor where the best inbound leads are coming from. Right. You can also obviously you'd have things like telephone calls and all sorts of others. I'll just show you with an individual one. So obviously this has been preset. So in this case, it's come through Messenger and the live chat. See over here it says lead source. Here we've got a whole lot of different ones set up. So call, email, website, advertising, was it an existing client, by recommendation, whether it was a show, callback, or boost, whether Facebook and live chats are set up. Alright. Okay, now onto the next part. So that would be the main what I'd call a base level, in order to be able to have the systems that it can handle the database, that it can handle a lead coming in. You'll notice that the next one is the software cost. So this is actually straight from Bitrix24, and that's their CRM Plus package. The next level up is the CRM integrations with the live chats and the lead forms and socials. Now, the reason why we separate these out from our top one is that it's open-ended to know how many of the team's emails we've got to set up. So in the case where somebody says we've got 200 staff that need to be on it, it would obviously take us a lot longer, and this is not, we're not expecting to do 200, but invariably everybody's emails need some type of access, and it's never as easy as just clicking a few buttons and the emails come in, because it's usually, is it the main mailbox they're going to use? Is it a second mailbox they're going to use? Is it specifically their mailbox that gets integrated with Bitrix24 email box? The next one is the socials. So whether we'd have issue socials being pulled in, because it can handle Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Would you have those being pulled in automatically when somebody messages for a quote or just messages? And then of course we'd need access. The lead forms can be put into the website. You can have it so that the lead form automatically just goes to the mail, or you can actually put in the Bitrix24 lead form. And then you've got the live chat feature. Again, we'd need internet. We need access to the website in order to be able to get those to function, or to be able to give the website administrator the code so that they can put in the form. So we price this outside of the initial setup, purely because it is a lot more work. The next one down is the set up the call integration inbound and outbound. So in this case, we've turned it off. It's not active, but we can connect SIP phones to the system, and we can get the system to actually handle the inbound call and the outbound call if needed. It would mean that you'd need a SIP calling account somewhere. It is a low cost, obviously. Not too sure if you're using SIP phones, but it's a fairly low cost in order to be able to have calls through SIP calls, and you can have the SIP calls coming through your phone as well. You can actually make calls directly from the Bitrix24 mobile app, and it would route those calls through the SIP phone. So that's quite a handy feature to have when you want all your calls to automatically be registered in the system. It does take a much larger time to set up, and also a whole lot of integration with which calls are going to, which telephone numbers you're going to use across the different advertising or the different marketing places. Next up is the documents in the drive. So we've priced this separately, but this is this is basically like setting up a Dropbox or a Google Drive or any one of those what do you call them, cloud-based drives. In order to be able to set up properly, usually companies that have asked us to set up the correct format to have everything in the drive means that we can set up the correct folders and where they would be, how to access them, so that if, for instance, there's a stock standard terms and conditions, that it's online and it's always updated, and that's the one that everybody has access to. It's a type of thing where you'd have a link in an email and continuously use that so people could read it. It really is setting up a complete drive for the business with your documents in the cloud. Right, the next one down is as mentioned earlier, it's the outsourced help center. So that's where clients have come to us and said, would you handle the first call? So in other words, anything that comes through via email or call, we would sift through it, turn it into a lead, and then pass that on. So I've turned that off as well. And then we've got the pseudonym call tracking. So this is the pseudo number. So basically having a number that we can use in different places. So a lot of times a client might use one number that's always in print or maybe in a newspaper. They have another number that they might use on their website so that they know if a telephone call came from that number, that it was definitely from the website. They might have another one on social. They might have another one on the bottom of their email signature. So clients use them in a lot of different types of places so that the calls are tracked. In this case, these are not necessarily integrated into the SIP phone, so that doesn't mean that they come straight through into the system. But when a call is taken, then that call would be logged in the system, and then together with the reporting that we get, we can see how many of the channels are performing well, and we can also update, knowing which number was called. We can also update Bitrix to handle which channel that actually came from. Next up is the training. So we usually do two 2-hour sessions where we like as clients to first explore, get a feeling of where it is, then get training on what the correct procedures are for the CRM, both for the leads and for the deals. Then use it for a little while. So usually a good 2-week period's good for people to start to see what questions they would ask in order to be able to use it the most effectively. and then have another 2-hour session afterwards in order to be able to brush up on best processes and also the questions of we have another step in the deal that's not set up. How do we set that up and show people how to change a deal or a lead process, or for that matter, setting up a multiple deal funnel if need be. All right, and then so this basically what the spreadsheet does is that we turn on and off active services so that we can work out what needs to be done and what the cost would be in order to be able to get it set up. In the case of setting up the CRM, we probably could get it all done within a month, although some clients just say, can we do it over a longer period of time? The only thing that changes the cost is really the CRM cost is obviously spread over is not spread over a 3-month period, but the other ones are. Right, and then just a little bit about Bitrix itself. So Bitrix on its own is most probably the most used by small to medium-sized businesses because it's a low cost to start CRM, and the extendability of it is that the max price you would pay would only ever be $199 for the top end package. And the reason why we chose Bitrix is that one, it's completely extendable with multiple plugins. So if I show you when it goes to the settings and you've got applications it can link into, and the apps that it can link into, and the different integrations with different systems. I'll show you the application store down here. So from linking in with all sorts of systems in the marketplace that just help people do their business. And what's nice about this is that unlike some of the others available in the market, every single time you have a new added feature or need your extendability of the CRM, it usually costs you a lot more. Whereas this is capped at $199 if you needed to do absolutely everything. There are a few add-ons that might not be free, but so far everything that we've needed it to do in terms of the system. The only thing that does cost is if you need to send SMSs, or if you wanted to make SIP calls. Obviously calls and SMSs aren't completely free. So I hope that's given a good overview of how we price the setup. Yeah, shout if you have any questions.